Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. It's Jeremy Werner, Joey Wagner. Thought this podcast was going to be a heck of a lot different, Joey Wagner, as Illinois held a 21-7 lead over Wisconsin going into the fourth quarter. And then Illinois holds Wisconsin to a field goal on a long drive. And you're thinking, man, Illinois is so close to being 4-4, entering an off week with a great path to a bowl game. And then that fourth quarter happens, and Illinois gets outscored 18-0, outgained 150-79, loses Johnny Newton on a controversial targeting penalty, which I just heard back. Dean Blandino did think it was a targeting. We can discuss that, and we will. We'll hear from Brett Bielema and his reaction to all of that as well. But at the end of the day, another loss for Illinois. They had the victory in their grasp, Joey. And whether it was some controversial calls or it was a lack of defense, 3 drives of 50-plus yards for Wisconsin, all in the fourth quarter, and their offense could not stay on the field. This is, as Brett Bielema said, gut-wrenching, because how you would have felt after a win today, Joey, and how you feel after a loss and what it means for the season, what you think it means for potentially recruiting and all of that, it all changes in one quarter.
Yeah, a win would have felt like, after all the disaster that was those first 8 weeks at times, they kind of crawled back and would have probably been on path to a bowl game. And I see somebody, 92, they had a 92% win probability in the fourth quarter, 18-0 to get outscored in the quarter. That's, you could feel it coming, right? I mean, I don't know what point you really got that feeling. You could probably find a couple, but the Newton play certainly had an impact on the game. You can argue if it was fine. Like, I understand it was a controversial call, but it undoubtedly had an impact on the rest of that fourth quarter. It's gut-wrenching for him. It really is. I mean, it feels like you've seen the story before. You know, we were standing down there, you and I, and the rest of the media that goes down for the final 5 minutes, right at the back of the end zone. I got flashes of when Maryland did it in 2021, right? I mean, you just go back and see
Purdue did it in 2021.
Yeah, like you can just go back and see where this has happened. It's a program that had so much momentum a year ago in October. So much. At this time last year, they were rolling, and like they can't get 2 wins in a row. They haven't had 2 wins since that October stretch. It's just they haven't been able to sustain, to stack, to find some sort of momentum game to game or drive to drive, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, we'll get to the Johnny Newton play, and you'll hear from Brett Bielema here. But I went back and was just going through the box score. I'm like, how did that happen? Because this was an absolute whirlwind. Tip Ryman told me afterwards this was surreal. It was like a movie, kind of watching a car crash, whatever it is. And the big plays I have circled are the touchdown pass to Pauling should have been an interception. Tyler Strain had a great interception chance at the ball. He didn't attack the ball. He just didn't attack the ball. He kind of waited for it, waited back, and went backwards while Pauling attacked it. And that's a 20-yard touchdown. That's a 7-point swing, a possession swing. If he gets that, Illinois wins this game. Henry Boyer holds on a Tip Ryman first down with about 4 minutes left, Joey, and then they punt 2 plays later. If that doesn't happen, Illinois might have a chance to 4-minute drive and end this game with the ball in their hands, or at least give Wisconsin the ball back with maybe a minute instead of 3 minutes left on it. They had a bunch of timeouts, so maybe it still would have ended that way, but it's a different ball game. And then Wisconsin's final drive, listen, Braden Locke made some nice throws, showed a lot of poise in that fourth quarter, had a big fourth quarter. It was Braylon Allen that crushed you. Braylon Allen, 15-yard run on 2nd and 10, 10-yard run on 3rd and 10 from the 46. Braylon Allen runs for a first down. Those are the plays that absolutely crippled you. Johnny Newton was missed in those moments, but the defense, which was so good through 3 quarters today, was awful on the final 3 drives. Didn't have their best player, but still, that was – Illinois had so many chances to win this game even after the Johnny Newton call that we can't put it all on that. We'll get to it, but those are the moments I had circled, Joey.
Yeah, you could go back to the end of half. Wisconsin, the 3rd and 10, they're backed all the way up. And I looked at you, I said, Brett's going to try to score. Like they're going to try to get a stop here. Obviously, try to get a stop. I think they really felt like they were going to get a stop. And I thought Bielema was going to go down and try to score. Instead, a big play. They scored an end-of-half touchdown. I asked Brett Bielema what happened. People pointed it out. This is a team that likes to play man. They went zone in that. Like it feels like it's a team that needs to continue to play aggressive in some of those end-of-half, end-of-game scenarios that have hurt Illinois before. This isn't new. Happened at Kansas. You can go down the line. Like those end up cropping up. And I think that drive has to be included in this because it gave Wisconsin maybe something, right? It just maybe a little bit of like, hey, okay, like they played a terrible first half and they were still in the mix after that drive, and you just can't have that when you're trying to string this together.
Yeah, and in the second half, can't let the offense off the hook. First drive, 6 for 21. Second drive, 10 for 53. Got the touchdown. Third drive, 5 for 24. You punt. Fourth drive, 6 for 12. You punt. And then 5 for 28, and you turn it over on downs late in the game. Didn't give up a sack, I think, in the first 3 quarters. I think would you have 3 in the fourth quarter alone? Some of that on Altmaier, some of that on the offensive line, but the offense wasn't able to get close this game either. So, man, just gut-wrenching, frustrating, disappointing in what has been. You're so close, Joey, to my lead. I had written a whole story about Illinois winning, right? Why wouldn't I? Going into the third quarter, that Illinois was a second half of the season team. Like all of a sudden, here they come in Big Ten West contention, maybe with Iowa losing to Minnesota tonight. Wisconsin would have been down, right? Now Wisconsin, I think, is leading the West. It's really disappointing that this is what happened in that fourth quarter. Lose 18-0. And as somebody's pointed out in the chat here, fourth quarters have been a problem in the Brett Bielema era. Not only the first season, but last season. Then, it took some real heroics against Maryland and Toledo to eke out those victories in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I do. There was a 4th and 1 stop on like the third drive, another 4th and short that Illinois just hasn't been good in those. They were good at Maryland. They got the big touchdown at Maryland. You thought maybe that was going to swing it. At some point, you wonder if Brett Bielema is just going to lean more, and people aren't going to like it. And be half the people hate it, half the people love it. But you punt on some of those, just pin them back. Hugh Robertson's been largely pretty good. Like you're just not getting it there, and you're turning the ball over, and not plus territory, but I guess reasonable territory for opposing teams. Wisconsin on that first quarter didn't manifest any points. So maybe I'm just speaking to nothing, but I think you probably have enough of a body of work coming out of the bye week to be more conservative on those 4th and short plays and just try to pin them in. I don't know, but that's Maryland was a blip, right? That's what we wondered, and in that particular scenario, it was again.
Yeah, but the frustrating is for 3 quarters, it didn't feel like a blip. It felt like this team was turning the corner.
I meant the short yardage.
I get you, but like Maryland's entire game felt like
that's right.
That's why I picked Wisconsin coming into this game. It's like Illinois got to prove it to me. And tonight they were great for 3. Not great, but I thought it was again B football, B to B plus football, and that's usually enough to win Big Ten games. And then they just completely failed in the fourth quarter. Now, of course, I mean the game did swing on Johnny Newton's targeting call. And I watched that, and I watched the replay, Joey, and I can understand by rule how they called it. But as just a fan of football, I hate it. It's just a football play. It was a phenomenal play by Johnny Newton. He did try to lead with his hands, but he did dip his helmet. So technically it is targeting, but I hate that he's ejected from the game. That needs to change. If you want to call targeting and give it a 20-yard penalty, go for it. If you want to get that out of the game of leading with your helmet, to throw that gate out of the game and then to have him out for the next half, that's still a rule, by the way. He is out for the first half against Minnesota. That changes the game when Johnny Newton is on the field. I feel like Johnny Newton would have made one play that would have done it. So we can argue back and forth about is it targeting, is it not targeting, but I hate the fact that he is ejected from the game and held out the first half of the next game. I think that is ridiculous, and college football needs to change that. But it's sad because, Joey, he was the best player in the field today. We were talking Altmaier's legs. Is he the star of the game? If Johnny Newton, if that was a sack as it should be, they did have a hold on the call too, so it still would have been a first down for Wisconsin. But he was inching his way to player of the game for me. He was just a game wrecker, and that changed the game when he went out. Obviously, he's so good, and he means so much to this defense.
Yeah, it was a huge impact. I mean, counterpoint. There's a counterpoint. That in year 3 of your tenure, I know Johnny Newton's your best player. That's far and away obvious. Someone should be able to make a play.
Yep.
Right? Whether it be offensively or defensively, that can't be the sole reason. Like your guy got ejected with like 10 minutes, I think I wrote down. 10 minutes and 2 seconds left in the fourth. That can't be.
I looked at you, and one of the things that we thought was really fun in this game is Gabe Ackus moved to defensive line. And I love the move because it gets your best talent on the field. Gabe now at defensive line. You move Ezekiel Holmes, I thought played pretty decently today. You get Seth Coleman, Alec Bryant. You're deeper at outside linebacker than defensive line, right? And I'm thinking that could be what you do next year. Like if you don't crush it in the portal or the JUCO market with defensive linemen, Gabe Akers can gain 20 pounds and play Keith Randolph's position and potentially play it really well. And it might be better for him than outside linebacker, because I just think athletically he's better as a defensive lineman than outside linebacker. But it's like he's got to make a play, or Seth Coleman's got to make a play, or Rosiak, or Kenena Odeluga. And those guys were blitzing. Aaron Henry was getting aggressive, and they just could not get home. Kudos to Wisconsin's offensive line for blocking it up and picking it up. But Illinois just couldn't get a play. There were a couple balls that were tipped, Joey. That's just like, can he get to one of those? Can he get that interception? Same thing with the Tyler Strain play. The defense was not able to make that one play, that negative play on Wisconsin that allowed Wisconsin to march down the field.
Yeah, you also have to give Braden Locke credit. A redshirt freshman, first road star, that guy made some throws. He made some good throws in critical moments. But to your point, he had a lot tipped. And there are so many that just kind of felt like they fluttered in the air, waiting for someone to get under it, and it never happened. Needed that. I thought Tyler Strain had an opportunity to make a play. Man, if you don't pick it, just get your hand on it, right? Try to
attack the ball.
Try to be a problem there for the wide receiver. There's that, like, this. I don't know. Someone's got to make a play. It can't just be, well, Johnny's gone. Someone's got to come up and do something. That's what your program needs to be.
Yeah, because your program's in trouble because Johnny Newton's going to be a first-round draft pick if you don't have anybody else making plays. Here's Brett Bielema discussing the Johnny Newton targeting, and he was pretty frustrated with the officiating tonight. So here's Brett Bielema.
Johnny obviously will appeal it. I saw it on the field. One of the things we wanted to do with this quarterback, sometimes when you have open hits on the quarterback, it's very tempting to lead with your head. And we've been trying to teach those guys to go for the ball. He was really loose on the ball. We obviously got one out in the first half. There was a play at the end of the game last week against Iowa where they got the ball out. So I think Johnny actually led with his hands, and it just turned the game. Like it's maddening. It's absolutely the most frustrating thing to have one of your best players make a great play and to have it go 30 yards the other way is just insanity.
What do you do then, Brett, with the Big Ten?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't had to do this before, so you can appeal those, right? So routinely on any given week, I try to minimize it. I'll turn in, last week I turned in 4 plays, and all 4 came back. Yeah, we'll get better, right? I don't know how many I'll turn in this one, but like those kids deserve an answer. I get it. I'm the head coach, but those guys deserve an answer, right? Fans deserve an answer, and we didn't do enough to win the game, hands down. That's what it is. But to have things that are just routinely taken from you, it's sickening.
I'm glad he added that we didn't do enough to win the game, because Illinois still had plenty of chances to win the game. But for anybody saying it's easy to blame the Newton call, like, it changed the game. It did change the game because he's ejected. That's what I hate. If that's a roughing the passer, I don't have as big of a deal with it. I hate the targeting call that these kids get ejected, Joey. But it absolutely changed the game. It doesn't excuse everything with Illinois. But, man, not having your best player for the final 10 minutes when your defense couldn't stop anybody, he would have made a difference.
You would think so. Yeah, I mean, and I'm glad Brett Bielema said that too, because there were chances. I mean, you have that, and they go down. That put the ball at the 43. But you still gave up 57 more yards, right, on that drive for a touchdown and a play in the end zone that should have been made. But Braylon, I mean, and then the rest of the fourth quarter, you couldn't stop Braylon Allen. He's a huge back. He's a very good back. I was really impressed with what Illinois did through the first 3 quarters and slowing him down. I mean, it looked a lot like what it looked like a year ago in Madison. And then that fourth quarter, he was very, very good. And when Johnny Newton was out, he was the best player on the field.
Yeah. A positive of this game, Joey, is my lead. Illinois ran the dang ball. They ran it incredibly well. 223 yards. Luke Altmaier, 100 yards. How many plays did he make with his legs in crucial situations, these third down and longs, and he's just able to miss a defender, make a defender miss, and then get these first downs. 100 yards from your quarterback. He's been phenomenal with his legs. Caden Fagan looked like Braylon Allen. 24 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown, 12-yard touchdown. Just to get that speed to the edge and the outside. It was incredibly encouraging from the run game. Even Lawfrey had 3 carries for 18 yards. Isaiah Williams, 2 for 8. Barely any negative plays on the ground. Your passing attack could not do much at all tonight. Huge issue. Altmaier, 13 of 21, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. The tight ends are pretty good tonight. The wide receivers could not get open. And Isaiah Williams only with 6 touches tonight for 24 yards. I don't know if that was what Wisconsin was doing. I know the wind caused some issues when you're going into it, Joey, but I thought there were some chances even in that third quarter to take some shots with the wind at your back, and they just did not execute in their passing game tonight.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the wind was an issue, but Braden Locke had 240 passing yards. Yeah. So, I mean, they went to Pat Bryant early on that shot downfield. He had single coverage out there, no safety over the top, and they did it. And I thought, okay. And Wisconsin was selling out to stop the run. And Frank, I mean, yeah, you could have made a real argument for more shot plays downfield. Didn't see, usually you'll see an Ashton Holland shot play in there somewhere. Just didn't see that. And I don't know if we'll talk to Barry Lunny this week, giving us an off week, but the offense, what's the second half offense right now? I should have done so much more preparation.
Let's see here. Illinois had 70 yards in the fourth quarter. Wisconsin had 150. That was a big difference. I mean, the second drive in the third quarter was pretty good. It was a long one for about 50-plus yards, but only had about 120, 130 yards in the second half, I think.
Yeah, Illinois had 74 yards in the third quarter, 74 yards in the fourth quarter. I mean, that's not – I get it. It's a redshirt freshman on the road. Quarterback, you think you could get him to make mistakes. He didn't. And you've got to have more of an offense than that. And I know someone said there was 3 and outs. They were sustaining some drives. I mean, they were able to – the 3 and outs came after the touchdown. They got it 21-16, but offense didn't do enough, man.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get to some of your questions here. And if you got a super chat, we'll definitely get to your questions. We appreciate all you guys that send in your super chats. Fett, we see yours. We'll get to that here coming up. We also got some questions from Isaac Ambrose, our producer. But first, let's hear from one of our great sponsors.
For unique and comfortable Illini gear, well, Homefield is a premium collegiate apparel based in Indianapolis that emphasizes their commitment to creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. They feature a growing collection of over 150 colleges to choose from, including, of course, the University of Illinois. So go check out homefieldapparel.com because their designs are super unique because they delve into the archives and history of each school using unique logos and iconic moments to create thoughtfully designed apparel. I'm scrolling at homefieldapparel.com right now with their Illini gear, and they have 1989 Fighting Illini basketball long sleeve. They got the Flying Illini logo, the script Illinois. You can get the pants, the joggers, that 1970s script, or a nice hoodie. They got the 80s Illini football helmet, the 2004-05 Illinois basketball logo on a vintage crew neck, the Ringer retro tee, the orange Ringer tee with Fighting Illini basketball on it. Go check these guys out. Because not only is the design fantastic, but these shirts, guys, are incredibly comfortable. Homefield is all about authenticity and nostalgia. So give their site a look. It's not the typical Illinois gear you see. You can find them at homefieldapparel.com, where you can see their selection of colleges available, of course, including Illinois. And guess what? Our listeners get 15% off their first order with discount code Illini23. Again, 15% off at homefieldapparel.com with discount code Illini23. Whether you're looking for Illinois football gear for this season or Illini basketball gear for the coming season, check out homefieldapparel.com.
All right, Joey, let's get to some of these questions from Isaac Ambrose. But first, Fetigator asks, outside of the opening scripted plays, we appreciate the super chat here, Fetigator. Once again, the offense comes to a standstill, even at the end. Playing not to lose, in my opinion, another Lunny fail. What do we make of that, Joey? You're muted, Joey. There you go.
Still learning this thing.
Still learning.
I had more issue in the fourth quarter, but they had an opening drive 3 and out. They had the sack. No, the 3 and out there right at the end of the half after Wisconsin scored that. And they had one other one. There's a yardage. Like, it was totally different. Usually it's like they're not getting any plays, but they weren't getting yards. They sustained some drives.
Yeah, first downs on both those drives they punted on in the fourth quarter. The Boyer holding was just a killer. Just a killer. I mean, we were looking at this game. Wisconsin penalties was cruising ahead in the first half. And then Illinois in the second half, just penalties killed them, including the Newton one, of course. But it was just completely flipped. And Illinois had penalties at the worst times in the fourth quarter. Illinois 2 for 25 in the fourth quarter. Second half, Illinois had 4 penalties for 35 yards. Wisconsin 1 for 5. And that Boyer one just completely crushed that drive that I thought was promising. When you get that conversion, man, like you might have been able to milk away that clock and potentially win the game.
Yeah, that one has happened right as we were getting down there, and you see Luke Altmaier scramble, and you think, okay, like this.
Yeah.
Minimally, the Wisconsin will burn its timeouts and try to get the ball back, but
it was conservative though. Like I said as we were getting onto the elevator with about 7 minutes left, you can't go conservative now. Like you need to move the ball. You can't count on your defense without Johnny Newton. And I thought one had to get the ball at some point. You got to get the ball in one's hands. Bryant didn't get a lot of targets tonight. I thought you had to get vertical. And I know a couple times they did, and Altmaier took some sacks, but they weren't able to get separation. I'll have to look at the film, Joey, but it felt conservative watching it a little bit. But you had the conversion tip rhyme that gets called back for the holding. But I just felt like I kept thinking one's got to get the ball. He's got to get the touch somehow in vertically up the field. And it just wasn't there.
Yeah, not a lot of touches for him. They got the ball to him a little bit creatively, put him in the backfield. But I remember at one point in the fourth quarter when Illinois was up, I thought, man, they might win this game. And Isaiah Williams has 4 catches for 16 yards. Now looking back in retrospect, that's not enough for your best offensive skill player, best offensive player, second best player on the team. Like guy needs the ball, and you're right. I mean, it's worth going back to look, obviously, to see if Wisconsin did something, but you got to funnel that dude the ball because he's makes things happen, and you don't have a lot of make things happen guy right now.
All right, our producer Isaac Ambrose says, sum up the game in 5 words or less.
Brett Bielema did it, right?
Gut-wrenching?
Yeah, I mean that. I'm sorry.
Mine would be, oh no, not again, Illinois. That'd be my 5 words.
That's so Illinois.
And that is what everybody's saying in our chat is like, this is Illinois football. And that's what's frustrating for this fan base is, man, you're thinking 2 years in a row you're going to beat Wisconsin. Wisconsin, Joey, who they beat once in like the last decade prior to that. Like you have outplayed, out-physicaled Wisconsin for 7 of the last 8 quarters after getting crushed by them 2 years ago. It felt like, okay, might have had a bad start. You're close again to a breakthrough, just like last year heading into November. Oh my gosh, this could be a special season and a breakthrough. Then you lose 4 of your last 5. The rug gets pulled out from under you. And I understand that feeling from Illinois fans covering this program for a long time, watching Illinois football when I was in college. I understand that feeling. And I think that's what a lot of Illini fans are feeling right now.
Yeah, a lot of people have seen the same movie before, right? Maybe it's a little different. Maybe you watch it at a different time, but you watched a little bit of it towards the back end of last season. You've seen it again now. You thought you were going to see it in Maryland, to be honest with you. I get it. I understand the frustration and the defeated feeling that it is because that was a brutal way to lose a game that really could have propelled you into the open week.
Scott says big refs are the worst. That's his 5 words. And hey, Dom, how you doing? Bottom of the Big Ten. Indiana is the bottom of the Big Ten right now. So you got that going for you. All right. Illini stand out from the loss. It's got to be Johnny Newton.
Yeah, it's Johnny Newton. Honorable mention goes to Luke Altmaier because he made some really, really good plays with his feet, not the passing game. It's totally reversed from what we've seen from this team. Usually, in earlier games this season, like, okay, they threw the ball. They had to, right? You had to throw the ball in a lot of situations. So the yardage was so skewed to passing was so much more, and they just could not get it going in the air today. And I don't think I had that one on my bingo board.
Yeah. It's Johnny Newton.
It is Johnny
top
Newton.
15 pick, top 20 pick. I thought he was fantastic. I thought the offensive line moved him through the first 3 quarters. And I thought they pass protected pretty well, Joey. I thought this was a pretty good game for the offensive line. Like those sacks, I think Luke Altmaier was holding on to the ball. He's scrambling around. Again, I got to go back and watch the film, but I think your offensive line's had 2 best games back to back to give you a chance. And obviously Fagan, I mean, he looks like Braylon Allen, man. Like he looks like a future pro. Like it's way too early to be saying that, but that's what it looks like. And to see that run to the edge, that was a different thing that we haven't seen a lot from him, just to show that speed that he can get to the edge and get a big chunk play like that and get in the end zone. That was really encouraging to see. So those were some standouts. I thought your secondary struggle, that the linebackers didn't show up as much. And outside of Johnny Newton, I thought Gabe Akis played one of his better games. on the defensive line. Thought he had some pressures, had that breakup at the line of scrimmage. So I thought he showed some encouragement, but when you don't have Randolph and Newton, it showed up in that fourth quarter. Anybody else you want to mention?
No, I'm with you.
Hugh Robertson?
Hugh Robertson had a good game. Look, I mean, yeah, he needs to be mentioned. That guy has rightfully been under fire at times during his starting punting career, and he's putting together. I thought there were those penalties on special teams, one of which cost like 17 yards. Special teams has been largely, there's been blips, right? But largely, I thought special teams has been okay. But real quick about the offensive line, I don't feel like at any point in that game I watched that thinking, boy, these guys are a problem again.
Yeah.
Now, the sacks, there were critical sacks at critical times, but there's been games where we've watched that and thought, oh my God. There were a couple of moments, right? Josh Gesky whiffed on a block at one point. There were moments that Luke Altmaier was sacked in the fourth quarter, but that wasn't the easy out like the offensive line has been all season.
Mm-hmm. All right. Player series that define the game besides the Newton ejection. For me, it's the Tyler Strain. Should have been interception, turned into a touchdown.
It was the same drive. Right? He does that. I don't have the drive chart next to me. It's the next drive, the holding on Boyer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was it. It was that.
Those are the 2 plays.
There was that 6 minutes or whatever it was, not even 6 minutes, 4 minutes of game time.
Most underperforming position group. The secondary struggled in zone coverage, but man, they need some plays from the wide receivers.
I think it's you can take wide receivers. I'll take secondary because wide receivers didn't get the separation. Secondary didn't capitalize on some balls that fluttered around there a little bit.
Did either of us win pick to click? I had Chrysler and Taz Nicholson. You had Pat Bryant and Nicario Harper. Pat Bryant had one good catch. Taz Nicholson had PBU. God, they need a big play in that secondary, man. Like, I understand your best players from last year are in the NFL, but they need one of those plays to turn into a pick. Like Xavier Scott had a pick six if he would have caught the ball. That's got to be done. Tyler Strain, you got to pick if you attack the ball. They got to come up with one of those plays. The tips, like Miles Scott's not getting to them. Maybe it's just the way the ball bounces or whatever, but you're just waiting for that one big play from the secondary because you're getting a few of them from your front the last couple of weeks, right? Secondary needs to come up with those.
Yeah, it's a fair question mark coming in. I thought early on, I thought, it's not. Oh, yeah, it's not been very consistent. That's the best way I can put it. The secondary just has not been consistent this year.
Most notable comment from Brett Bielema post game. I think we played it.
Yeah, all of the ref anger.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Gabe Akis, I think he kind of left the door open that Gabe Akis
sure did.
Might play defensive line next year. I think I think that's his best spot. He is not as good as he is, as freak of an athlete as he looks. He's not the quickest guy, right? So I think he's really quick as a defensive lineman, though. And given said McConnell, is he a starting Big Ten defensive line? I don't know yet. I think Gabe Akis would be. So I think given that you feel outside linebacker should be a strength moving forward, depends on what they do in the portal most likely, but I think they should be open-minded about Gabe Akis at defensive line.
Yeah, I think that was a big one. It's one of them. I'm glad he mentioned it because this was not the time to ask about that. So I'm glad that was mentioned. It's something that we can discuss and think about. But I also thought when I asked him about those end of halves, and he talked about going more zone, they need to. We've spent a lot of time talking about offensive identity fairly. Defensively, if you're going to be a man team, be a man team. And
defensively, you had a 21-7 lead. You got to close that game. Like I understand the offense frustration in that fourth quarter. Your offense did enough, I thought, to win this game. Your defense had to get a stop. And as good as Aaron Henry had been the previous 7 quarters, Joey, or maybe 4 3/4 games, really, besides maybe that fourth quarter and second half of Purdue, did he put his guys in position to succeed, right? With that zone coverage. I just think young guys, it's easier for them to turn and run, and maybe you give up some first downs because Xavier Scott can't keep up with Will Pauling on a drag. That's fine. But if it puts him in more position to force Braden Locke to throw into tight windows, I think that's probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, I'm curious if that's something that we see more of from this team out of the bye week, out of the open week. Bob Osmondson sitting next to me, he would hate if he heard bye week. Because I think that's their best path because it allows them to be more aggressive. I'm fascinated by that when we next talk to Anna Henry.
Yeah. Number one thing Illinois needs to focus on over the bye week. I got one, Joey.
Recruiting?
Recruit. They need some JUCO help, offensive line, defensive line. And Brett Bielema hinted that that's where they're going.
He said he and one coach. My guess is him and Bart Miller are going to be in a plane somewhere to some junior college.
Yeah, in my recruiting lounge, I mentioned a couple targets that they could be looking at. I think defensive line, they're going to look for some JUCO guys. So it would not surprise me if Terrence Jameson and him go to a JUCO at some point this week. But yes, Illinois needs to go get some talent, and I think especially on the line of scrimmage with what they're losing on the line of scrimmage. Offensively, defensively, I think they just need to heal up. You need to get Keith Randolph back. I do think Reggie Love getting him back will help as much as Caden Fagan, how exciting he is. It's nice to have another veteran that you can put in there in the game, maybe take a load off Luke Altmaier and his legs for a little bit, but
gotta let Zy Chrysler continue to get healthy. I thought Zy Chrysler took a lot of criticism in the first 6 weeks, a lot of it fair. I thought he's played fine football the last two games. He continues to get healthy. I think getting him in particular healthy, figuring out what you really like the most at the other guard spot, whether that's Hunter Whiteneck, whether that's Josh Geske, whether it's a continued rotation. You got to solidify some answers, rotational answers, now that you would hopefully be a little healthier going into this back four.
This is an interesting question from Isaac. Is there something to be said about home clunkers? The biggest frustrations of the Bielema era typically have been at home. You think of last year, Michigan State and Purdue. You think of Maryland at home, Rutgers at home in 2021. I think there's pressure in this stadium, especially towards the end of games, that you can feel the crowd tense up, and maybe that gets them tensed up. I think there's a us against the world on the road that kind of, I don't know, some teams seem a little bit more focused sometimes on the road. There's not as many family members there. I don't know.
I don't know if from all the chatter, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think they've played well in those games. I don't know if it's something about being on the road or being at home, but on the road, the business trip thing you've heard from players can focus them a little bit more. I don't know. I don't know if there's something from the home, but yes, a lot of these disappointments have come at home.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a common thread, but there's certainly a common outcome, right? And this was what other home games? They beat FAU, they beat Toledo, Nebraska. Nebraska was brutal here this year. Yeah, I mean that's a fair point to bring up.
Yeah. Macro question from Isaac: do the up and down performances seem to be part of the Bielema Illini experience? I think it's part of the Big Ten West experience, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Look at Iowa this week. Wisconsin's been up and down. It's not a very good division. It's a bunch of close games, and who executes in the fourth quarter? And Illinois did not execute in the fourth quarter. Like that. That's what the Bielema era mostly has been the last 2 weeks, Joey. It's been close games, coin toss to see who wins the game and who executes better in the fourth quarter. And I don't even know if Illinois executed all that much better in the fourth quarter against Maryland, but they at least had a lead going into it. So the encouraging part is the last 2 weeks you've had a chance to win. But to lose this one when you had probably your best first 3 quarters of a game this season just makes it, as Brett Bielema said, gut-wrenching. So
in front of your best crowd by a wide margin.
Great crowd.
By beautiful a wide margin.
Beautiful day, 54,000, and that was a legit attendance number. And there wasn't that many Wisconsin fans here. Like their little section over there was not full. But man, Illinois fans showed up after that Maryland loss. A beautiful day, homecoming, and man, they deserve to win. That is for sure. Last one's here. Any injury updates? Caden Fagan said it was a cramp. That's it. I don't know if we had any other injuries throughout this game.
Zach Chrysler went in the tent, came out. Nothing came of that. He went one-on-one. We'll get to the questions. Goodness.
Yeah.
They got out of this pretty healthy. They just need to continue to heal up.
All right. Let's get to some of the questions from our chat. Chris is angry. Chris, we can do everything but the name calling, all right? Let's not do name calling on this chat. But he said this coaching staff doesn't know how to close a game. Huge problem last year, too. Listen, that's fair. Fourth quarter. You got to find a way to win games. And they have really struggled throughout most of their tenure in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, 100%. That's more than fair, and does feel like at times, whether it be, as we talked about, going to zone defense or maybe getting too conservative offensively, I'm sure they would push back when we ask about that, but that's what it's felt like, and that's contributed to these fourth quarter games.
Kyle thought the wide receivers had an extremely poor day. Altmaier was keeping plays alive all afternoon, but nobody could win downfield for him at all. Yeah, they need more talent outside of Isaiah Williams and getting separation consistently. Again, I wish I had all 22 film because I could tell whether these wide receivers are getting separation or not, but it's not a strength for Washington. It's not a strength for Bryant. They're not the quickest dudes, fastest dudes. They need more speed. And to follow that up, somebody asked about Malik Elsie. They clearly do not trust him like they trust these other guys. The wide receiver group did not get very deep today, Joey. It feels like that rotation is getting smaller and smaller, if anything.
I'm trying to remember. Sean Miller and Malik Elsie were out there on a play. I think they had a snap or two. But
Haven't
otherwise,
seen a lot of Beatty.
No. Otherwise, it was the top three. Didn't see a lot of Canary. Wilcher. I do think, and again, without the all-22, I remember a few plays we thought, okay, he looked open. At one point, I remember Casey Washington, was coming over the middle, looked like he was open. Luke Altmaier didn't go to him, but they're not consistently doing it. And I think there's a fair thing to say, can you scheme up? Can you scheme up ways to get these guys open when their strength is not separation? That's a very, very fair question. I've seen people point it out. I get it. I think that's fair to ask.
Too easy, Chris says, to blame the loss on Newton's call. Listen, we've spent this entire thing saying Newton's call changed the game. It is not solely to blame for the loss. It certainly impacted the game, and him getting ejected from the game hurt Illinois. But they had plenty of chances to win. So, Chris, we've covered that. I think you understand that.
I think it's fun. Sometimes we don't talk about the refs. It's like, you don't talk about the refs, and we talk about them. And then I get it. I understand it. It's just frustrating for a lot of people.
Yeah, and even if it's the right call technically, again, I just think I hate ejecting kids. I hate ejecting kids for this stuff. Jen, in the postgame, Brett Bielema mentioned Wisconsin defense was clapping to trigger offsides. Why didn't the refs catch that? And what do you make of the situation in general? They don't give us the refs postgame, and the Big Ten does usually not make any comments about their refereeing. And that's why I asked Brett, what do you do with the Big Ten when you have these frustrations or you have these issues? And from what we heard, Brett Bielema tried to talk with the officials at halftime, and the officials really did not want to talk with Brett Bielema. So it seemed like this was a building issue with Brett about just the communication with the Big Ten referees. We see this with basketball. We can hear it in basketball because we're right there. And we can kind of hear how they go back and forth. And there's certain guys like Bo Borowski, whether you think whether you like him as an official or not, Brad Underwood loved him because he communicated with him. And I think Brett Bielema seemed to be getting frustrated that he wasn't getting communication with the officials. So I don't know the answer to that question, but Brett Bielema was really ticked off that they were clapping. It's why he wasted a timeout, because he thought his guy jumped off sides and he called a timeout or whatever it was. So he was really ticked off about that, Joey.
Yeah, this was a game-long ordeal for him. And why didn't the refs do anything about it? That was the thesis for Bielema. That's what he wanted to know. That I don't know. But it's something that I don't know if it was that in particular. I do think it was, because if you'll remember, it looked like Luke Altmaier may have gotten hit late, and a lot of people remember Brett Bielema was very, very frustrated in the first half. A lot of people thought, well, was he mad about a late hit? I think he was mad about that, about something along those lines. He was frustrated, man. He was frustrated throughout.
This might be the most ridiculous comment I've seen. Newton and Randolph aren't nearly as effective as they were last year. Well, Randolph's been hurt the last two games, so that might have something to do with it. Did you watch the game today, Ross? Did you see Johnny Newton and the impact he was making? He was in Braden Locke's face all day. Had 3 quarterback hurries when he was in. I think he's going to get credit from PFF for like 8 pressures in this game. Had a sack, should have had 2. Newton was awesome. He's going to be a top 20 pick.
Well, Ross was also worried about Jeremiah Fears sticking around. Jeremiah Fears being the point guard recruit on campus. As near as I can tell, he will not be lining up a defensive back, so that's inconsequential. Yeah.
Joseph, thanks Illinois for beating my Badgers last year to enable us to get a new coach and get rid of Christ and modernize our offense. Yeah, listen, that was a big swing, and kudos to Chris McIntosh for hiring Luke Fickell. And I think obviously they're going through some growing pains of changing the schemes, and they lose a quarterback. But Braden Locke's talented, man, and I think this is the big swing of, hey, we want to get in college football playoffs. We want to be more like Penn State than Iowa, right? So I think that's a kudos to the Badgers. We'll see if they can win the West this year, because now with Iowa losing, it's certainly wide open for the Badgers to potentially win the West.
The West. I am going to miss the West so much. Man. It is so much chaos. And here's the thing. We're standing down there. Had Illinois pulled this thing off, and I know no one wants to hear this now because they didn't, the door would have been open. After a disastrous first 6 games, the door would have been open because the West is wild, man. Wild West.
Well, can you go on the road and beat Minnesota? They're beatable. I know they won today, but they're beatable. Their offense is not very good.
The rest of the schedule is beatable.
Indiana at home, Northwestern at home, You should win those games. And then Iowa on the road. Iowa lost today to a Minnesota team that I don't think is any more talented than you. So, like, listen, I think you can win all 4 of those games. But I'm not going to project a team that hasn't won back-to-back games all year to win all 4 games or to win 3 of the 4. So that's where we're at. Like, all these games are winnable. If Illinois plays like it did for 3 quarters today or plays like it did against Maryland, it's just this team has struggled so much to put 4 quarters together.
Well, they have not won back-to-back games since that winning streak last October.
Yep.
That boggles the mind. This was an 8-5 team last year that has not won back-to-back games for a calendar year.
Yeah. All right, let's do one more. Mike asks, how does this affect recruiting? Recruiting is so important right now, Joey. And I think if you would have gotten into 4-4, you can tell everybody, hey, listen, we had some growing pains. We had to figure some things out. Guys playing in new roles they've never played before. But look, we're 4-4. We're going to get to a bowl game. Now, wins help a lot, man. And it's not like Illinois is rolling in 4-star recruits right now. You know, like Purdue is. Wisconsin is. That's your competition. And then you're going to have Washington, Oregon, UCLA, USC all in here. So recruiting is incredibly important. I think the staff is recruited better than the previous staff, but you got to keep up with the Joneses, and you got a lot to replace off this team next year. So I think this has an impact in recruiting. Does it tank it? I don't think so, because there's still opportunity. You can still sell the guys that are going to be making the NFL.
You've still built a lot of relationships over the course of 16, 24 months.
Yeah. So they need to improve recruiting. I mean, you continually have to up it, right? And I think we see in certain parts of these games, whether it was the secondary or the wide receivers, you need more talent. Or when Johnny Newton goes to the bench and you don't have another guy that can make a big play, that depth still needs to be built up. And while Brett Bielema is developing his younger guys, the fact that he had to put like Alex Bray in there in the 4th quarter, it's not where you want to be. So they got to continue adding depth and adding, obviously, just talent.
Yeah, and look, I know a lot of people ask, like, what they got to get in the mention, right? They've got to get in the portal. They got to get away from JUCOs, or they've got to start getting, talent right there. Brett needs talent in the portal in a bad way. That's all fair. And I think at this point, though, like, it's probably the most fun answer, but until we see like the action in terms of who they're involved with, who they're bringing on campus, I don't know how much that I can. We'll see. Yeah. Like, we'll see if their philosophy is going to change. I think it should. I think they were involved in offensive linemen a year ago in the portal. They didn't come through. So, I mean, I feel bad. Like, keep saying, I don't know, but I don't know until it gets to December and we see what it looks like.
There's gray areas because, like, hey, JUCO's not working. Well, Isaiah Adams has been pretty dang good the last couple games. Isaiah Chrysler's been pretty dang good.
It's when you take the JUCOs, right? Like, I think, like, we always look at, like, when – let's say like Bielema's gotten 3-star guys, right? And it's guys they prioritized early and gotten versus what you've seen other schools, other staffs get them late. Like, I think the guys, the JUCO, it's the same thing in JUCO. You go out, you prioritize an Isaiah Adams and Zy Chrysler during your open week in 2021.
Keyshawn Blackstock, who you did not get.
Yeah. But then you add guys that you added late in the cycle this year that they haven't traveled, they haven't been in games. Like, there's a difference in terms of when you get some of these guys. There's still development opportunity there, but you want instant impact guys. Like, you've got to get in on that early. You've got to target that early. You've got to make those moves. And it's not just a take late in the summer or late in the spring.
Well, and the next point I was going to get to, like, Luke Altmaier was a big transfer addition. Avery Jones was a big transfer addition. I know Avery's PFF grades are not the best for Auburn, and I don't know if he's playing all that well, but he would have helped this team. And those would have been 2 really big 4-star transfer additions. But I do think they need to be more aggressive for that high-end talent, right? Like, I think
I agree with you.
You know, trying to find these undervalued guys, like, yeah, there's some value in that, but taking 4 or 5 of them probably isn't the thing you want to do. I don't think you need to wholesale the portal. I don't think you need to go get 15 to 20 guys, but I do think you need to get more talented guys, especially when you're losing the offensive lineman, defensive lineman you are, and then add a wide receiver who can add competition. Like, Wisconsin had some pretty good transfer wide receivers playing today. CJ Williams made some plays. Will Pauling made some plays. And then in the secondary, I think Illinois can add some talent there to potentially boost the competition there. All right. Anything else you want to hit on? Any of these other questions you see, Joey?
Let me scroll through real quick. Yeah, Luke Altmaier didn't throw any interceptions. It is worth bringing up because he really hasn't had that. Penn State was the bottom, right? He's had some picks since then. But
0 turnovers.
Much more
today.
careful. Yeah.
0 turnovers. First time this year they have not turned the ball over. So listen, like, you needed one more drive from your offense, but I thought the offense played pretty well for most of this game. The passing game obviously needed to play a little bit better, but you were able to run the ball. You didn't turn the ball over. You were 7 of 15 on third down. And I know you only gave up 25 points, but just giving up 18 in the fourth quarter. At the end of the game, you're 10 of 17 on third downs. That was been an issue for this team. And it's something Aaron Henry's got to figure out again. Is it what I'm putting them in? Is it execution? Because those absolutely killed you on third down. And some of these were runs, just Braylon Allen long runs on third down. Fourth quarter, Wisconsin, 5 of 6 on third down.
There was a play, it was 3rd and 10 on that final touchdown drive, and they ran it. Wisconsin ran the ball, and I thought, goodness gracious, like that told me what I needed to know. Johnny Newton wasn't out there, Keith Randolph wasn't out there, and they thought it was probably a four down territory anyway. And they thought we're just going to run it on 3rd and 10. Like that is a telling moment for what they thought they could accomplish on the ground late in the game.
All right, that'll do it for us. Thank you guys for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast, watching us live on YouTube. For our YouTube guys, please hit the like button on the way out, hit subscribe, hit the notifications bell. We'll try and do some of these. Obviously, basketball around the corner. I see some of the live chat. Turn into basketball. We did this last night with Derek Piper. Go back, listen to that one if you would like. We got an off week, going to be a big week for Illinois football recruiting. Illinois basketball preparing for the Kansas exhibition as well. But thank you to everybody for listening to the Illini Inquirer podcast. Give us a follow, rating, review wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Take care of each other, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.